Hello everyone, it is Dani and welcome to this update video. So I really hope that you have been enjoying your Tuesday, and we're going to be taking a look at what is going on across the Atlantic. We'll be looking at some forecasts, but also if you have been keeping up with my latest updates, you would have known that there is an active cyclone over in the Indian Ocean, which is Belal, and it affected the islands of Mauritius as well as La Réunion, and it has induced a lot of widespread damage and even some deaths were reported. So we'll be getting into that. I'll be showing you guys some footage of what happened there, the extensive flooding, some of these strong winds as well, which resulted in some downed trees and damage to some structures. And so let's get straight into it. Now we are kickstarting things with Belal. So this is what the cyclone is looking like on the infrared satellite imagery right now, and it is struggling as a wind shear is taking its toll, which is basically those winds high in the atmosphere that help to displace all the activity and prevent the system from intensifying, and induces weakening. So there we can see it not looking too good at all, but it resulted in a lot of dangerous impacts across the islands of La Réunion as well as Mauritius, as I stated. Now here are a few videos showing how extensive the flooding was and how many people were seemingly caught off guard, because it looks as though it was a regular day, people going about their business as usual, but then the system struck and resulted in a lot of the widespread flooding that we're seeing, even the strong winds as well as we're seeing here. And some of the wind gusts in La Réunion were up to 100 miles per hour. So pretty strong winds there, and unfortunately there have been 3 deaths as a result of the impacts of the tropical cyclone. So it is a very unfortunate situation, but the good news, it has moved away and it will continue to weaken and eventually dissipate as we head through the next couple of days there. So my thoughts, my prayers are with the people of the affected islands over in the Indian Ocean. Heading over into the Atlantic basin now, here we can see that there's that frontal system and a couple of thunderstorms as well moving through Florida and offshore of the Carolinas. We can see that, and those white dots, they indicate lightning strikes. So with those storms moving through, there's likely going to be some additional heavy rain across portions of Florida, and some areas have already been experiencing that heavy downpour, and even across sections of Cuba as well. We can see some of those white dots popping up. Let's take a closer look at the Caribbean, and we're looking at the visible satellite imagery. So here we can see these clouds coming in from the east. Nothing much really happening right now. No major weather system, as the story has been for quite some time, because we are in winter and it is our dry season right now in the Caribbean. So there's a lot of dry air around, just helping to limit activity. And aside from the fronts, there's really no major weather system to induce significant impacts across the region. But as we head over into the next couple of months, we'll see more of those troughs moving by, which will eventually result in the rainy season kicking in for various areas. Looking at the rainfall forecast through tomorrow morning, though, here we can see it, and as the map becomes more colorful, that is indicating more rainfall. So as I said, portions of Florida may experience some additional heavy rainfall, which may be up to 1 inch or so. Similar story for portions of the Northwest Bahamas, Grand Bahama, the Abaco Islands, even over in parts of Western Cuba, and in portions of Central America going over into Mexico. Even for some spots in Belize, there may be some rainfall, but that's unlikely to be widespread. That substantial rainfall is unlikely to be widespread. Similar story for Guatemala, Honduras, as well as Nicaragua going to Costa Rica. And for parts of Colombia, it's going to be quite rainy, while for others, it will likely be pretty dry. Similar story for Venezuela, for the Guyanas, some showers may move by. But then as we head towards the ABC Islands, Lesser Antilles, even the Greater Antilles as well, we're seeing that there isn't much expected. We're not seeing those very colorful shadings, just some spots of those greens, maybe even a bit of orange popping up in yellows as well. So at the most, those passing showers, nothing substantial expected across the region. Then as we head on to the wind forecast, this is for later this evening, and we can see a lot of these blue shadings. So winds well over 20 knots and some gusts up to around 40 miles per hour across sections of the Eastern Caribbean. So offshore of Colombia and Venezuela, the ABC Islands, through the Lesser Antilles as well, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, sections of Hispaniola, maybe even some spots in Jamaica. But overall, for the northwestern part of the basin, we can see that things are going to be a bit more quiet, and even in the Gulf as well, with that frontal system in the region. Winds are kicking up there. A similar story as we head up toward portions of the northern Bahamas as well as the Turks and Caicos Islands. So that is what is happening, guys. And I mentioned that potential cool down a couple of days ago, and we're going to be looking at it now. Unfortunately, it is likely going to be quite limited for parts, for the Caribbean on a whole, so it may not be anything very significant as it relates to a significant temperature drop. Now we can see a lot of these blue going on to those purple shadings across portions of the U.S. So for many areas, it's very cold right now, sub-zero temperatures across much of the U.S., and some of that cold air extended into the Gulf. Now, as we're going to be heading into the end of this week and early next week, there's going to be another mass of that cool air coming down. You can see these blue shadings across portions of the eastern U.S., the south and eastern U.S., stretching towards Cuba, maybe over in portions of Central America as well. Most likely the eastern section of Mexico headed toward the Yucatan, maybe even Belize and Guatemala, and that is pretty much where GFS is expecting that it will stop. So yes, the winds may kick up, and that may be a bit of a saving grace, especially on these days with a lot of sunshine and very limited rainfall to really result in a substantial cool down. So that would be helpful for many of us, but again, it is unlikely that this massive cold air is going to advance further into the Caribbean, and Euro is in agreement with this for the most part. This is as we head into Sunday of the coming week, the 21st of January, and here we can see all this cooler air, below average temperatures over in parts of the eastern U.S. extended towards the western section of Cuba, and even for the Bahamas, maybe near the Turks and Caicos Islands as well. So that next front may not be a very strong one to unleash any significant impacts across the region, nor is it likely that that massive cool air is going to be reaching very far into the basin to result in that wet, stormy, cool weather that many of us, including myself, really love. And as I had mentioned, there's a lot of dry air around, and this is a look at the latest dry air map. We can see a lot of these shades of yellows, these oranges, these reds, even some pinks. And where we see those pink shadings, that is where that very dense area of dry air is. So all of that dry air is pretty much dominant right now, with that very limited rain across the Caribbean, which is quite typical of the dry season. But of course, guys, I'm here to keep you posted on everything that is going on, and I will be doing just that. So that is pretty much what I wanted to share with you in this update video, and I really hope that you found it to be quite informative. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll respond to you when I can. And remember to always be weatherwise.